Hi everyone, my name's Zara, your host for this evening. I'd like to welcome those present and watching online to your third evening of Candidate Spotlight. Here we have our Candidate for Activities Officer and I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Swati Subramaniam. My pronouns are she, her, and I study media communications and cultural studies.
Thank you. We will now move on to the first segment of this evening, in which we have a series of student-submitted questions. Let's start with your first question. What's the biggest change you're aiming to make?
So, highlighted in my manifesto, I think the biggest change I'm aiming to make is definitely outreach. A statistic that was brought to my attention recently shocked me a little bit, which admittedly is across the country and not just Newcastle University, but the target voting percentage of students in these sort of elections is 25% across the university, which makes me quite upset that 75% of students across the country on a good day don't understand that they're part of a union. So just sort of expanding societies and on a more sort of a general level, the student union and how aware people are of it to sort of the more general student community is definitely the biggest change that I hope to make.
Okay, thank you. Next. On your manifesto, you only mention experience as president of 20-Minute Society. To some, this may look like limited experience. Will this impact your understanding of the activities officer role?
I'll take that as an opportunity to sort of expand on other experience I have, as well as being president of the 20-Minute Society, which in my opinion is president of any society is quite an immersive role. In addition, I'm also race and diversity officer for the Labour Society. And on top of that, I attend the majority of student council meetings, and I'm also on the scrutiny committee. So I sort of kind of understand the ins and outs of how the student council works and on a more general level, the student union. So I believe my experience is adequate for a role like this. Additionally, the student union website doesn't actually mention that you require any experience for one of these roles, and I believe the experience that I do have is adequate kind of in terms of the job requirements.
Thank you. Next. How will you be able to help smaller societies and tailor your efforts to support them equally compared with larger societies?
I mention the starting of societies in my manifesto as well. When I first sort of got to uni and I was first involving myself in societies, I did think there were quite a few sort of niche societies, and I was wondering kind of maybe if they could have been reduced and condensed, but in fact they are very kind of highly populated and there is interest for these societies. So I do believe smaller societies are really crucial to student experiences. I will mandate training across all societies. So all kind of presidents of smaller and larger societies alike have sort of the same skill set. And hopefully, obviously there are societies that are kind of tailored to specific interests, but assisting those smaller societies with outreach may kind of even help them to sort of expand their kind of membership community further than what they have.
Thank you. Next. The 20-Minute Society is well known within our community for its jam-packed activities and yearly traditions. Some feel that this has not been reflected during your time as president. What is your response to this?
I believe being on a committee of a society is definitely a team effort. I will admit, during kind of my tenure, it's not sort of been as impactful, but I think for the last few years anyway, societies in general have kind of taken, a toll has been taken on societies in general, kind of when it comes to cost of living. I have talked to presidents of other societies as well, and they have also struggled with gaining as many members as they have in the past and sort of outreach in general. I believe this is also something to do with 2 years ago when the student union was really advertising their kind of there's a fund that students can kind of subscribe to, and which assists in people joining societies, and that's not been quite as advertised this year. And so I believe kind of every society, not just the 20-minute society, has kind of taken a toll by that not being advertised as much.
Yeah.
So with the cost of living struggles, as well as sort of university in general, and obviously there's so much kind of welfare concerns considering the current kind of climate. I think all of that kind of plays a role in not just that, but every society.
Thank you. Next, how do you intend to ensure things remain affordable?
As I mentioned, there is some money put aside to help students join societies and address any kind of financial bottlenecks that students might face when not being able to kind of pay into societies. So making sure that's well known and advertised as well as it could be. And obviously, I'm not quite familiar with like the ins and outs of how money is allocated within the student union yet, because obviously I'm not in this role yet, but kind of reallocating resources and stuff just to make sure that that money is kind of given to students that need it in terms of joining societies.
Thank you. How does your experience with Labour and 20-minute society help with the role?
As president, you definitely do sort of a lot of kind of event planning, and I've also helped quite substantially with that in Labour Society. That kind of combined with my background in communications from my degree, I believe all kind of ties into a crucial part of the role, which is event planning and obviously leadership. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, you mentioned training in your manifesto. Is there anything you want to do differently to the current training that's offered?
This year, the student union has mandated mandatory bystander training in terms of kind of sexual awareness and EDI. Currently, this training is only online. I would like to expand it to have it be in person, which obviously online training is completely valid, but when in-person training is available, I believe it kind of it connects with people a little bit better. As well as bystander training, I think EDI training is crucial, and we have a brilliant welfare. We have a brilliant welfare training program already, but just expanding that and making sure more of the committee get it, I think, is very important.
Okay, thank you. Now we have time for any questions from the audience. Yeah.
You're very well known amongst like the student groups that are involved with societies such as the 20-minute society and Labour Society, but then also people part of Amnesty feel very comfortable with you and are aware of the support that you offer everyone. How do you plan to carry on continuing that when you're in your role, if you get voted in?
The volunteering work that societies such as Amnesty Society and kind of alike has been doing recently with kind of what's going on in the Middle East is incredible, and I would love to sort of amplify that a little bit more next year. If you know me, you kind of know my personal stance on sort of this sort of on that issue. I can't make any promises, but I think on a macro level, I'll acknowledge kind of genocide where genocide is due, and on a kind of micro level, just making sure the SU is a safe space for Palestinian students and Jewish students and Muslim students and just anyone that needs kind of a safe space. Yeah.
Anyone else? Cool. So thank you for your questions and to students who have submitted them before the session. We'll now move on to the debate segment. So, as activities officer, you'll not just be supporting societies, but also be involved in organising other activities for students within the union. How will you ensure that you're giving students an enriched university experience and meeting student need?
The current activities officer has done a brilliant job promoting sort of other aspects of the student union. Sustainability weeks just happened, and I think stuff like that is so important within the union. There was also a Hanukkah event that I attended, which was absolutely brilliant. So just sort of using my background in communications and event planning, I would love to kind of continue that and plan sort of more events that celebrate kind of the diversity that comes with being a student at Newcastle University. Other than that, well, yeah, I think sort of just continuing that and kind of amplifying that and making sure that even if you're not kind of part of societies, you still feel comfortable saying, hey, like, I have an event that's important to me and I'd like that celebrated.
Thank you. This will also need to be balanced with your work with societies. How will you support students in societies while also planning wider events?
I'm not quite sure I understand the latter part of that question when you say students in societies.
Just
Committee members, I'm assuming is what it's come from a question that was submitted.
Okay. Yeah, well, as I said, mandating EDI and sexual awareness training is definitely very important to me. So we already have a brilliant welfare team within the university and the student union. Definitely sort of pointing more students to that, because I think there's quite a small percentage of students that are actually aware of the amount of resources that we already have. As I said, such a small percentage of university students in general are aware of the student union and the kind of benefits that you reap from being in it anyway. But the students I've talked to that have involved themselves in it have always considered it such an integral part of their student experience. So definitely, as well as sort of planning wider events amongst the union, amplifying society voices, and ensuring students are actually in those societies and students in those societies are aware of the resources we have outside of them is important to me.
okay, thank you. So that concludes the activities Officer Spotlight. Thank you all for coming and to those watching live, and thank you to our candidate for telling us more about themselves and their manifesto. Big thank you to NUTV and NUSU for hosting these sessions, and make sure to vote next week to help shape your campus.